Thanks for joining me today. It's my first live back. Dawn was with us yesterday, and then Lisa was obviously with us last Friday. I am using one of the brand new items that will be on the shows tomorrow. I'm just using the stencils today. It's the Cosmos Border Layering Stencil. It does come with its matching embossing folder, which obviously includes the die as well, but I'm just using the stencils today. And if you read the little blurb on the Facebook thing, it said that I'd be showing you how to use, like, because this is a DL shape, I'll be showing you how to use this to create a fuller posy onto an 8x8 card. And also there is like this slight watercolour technique as well, which is a faux watercolour. It's just, it may not be for everybody. It just gives you a slightly different way to use your inks and your stencils and create a slightly different effect. These are the ultimate, sorry, my mind went blank then. So I'll be using the peg system, and I'll be using sort of the layering stencils. Now, because I'm working onto an 8x8 card, there's a chance that I possibly won't be able to attach the stencils to the pins, so I'll show you different workarounds on how I get around that. You can use the extra little die, which will die cut some holes into there, but if you haven't got that, there is also a way where you don't need to have that. So I managed to find a workaround that I was able to get on with quite easily to actually make this work. Okay, so here is just the DL sample for you. That is the image straight as it is from the stencils. As you can see, they're DL stencils, but I wanted to use a larger square card. I think this actual piece of card itself works out just over 7 inches square. Yeah, 7 inches square, and so this will sit onto an 8x8 square, 8x8 inch square card blank. So I get myself organised. I always work with my stencils from one side, and I always, when I take them off, I move them onto this side, and I always turn them over, so it helps me keep the order of the stencils. Because if I just quickly explain for those who may not be familiar with the stencils, in each of the stencil packs that Lisa brings to us, she's numbered each of the stencils in this corner, which once you have them in your hand, they are quite visible, so you know which order you're going into. So I keep them on this side, I work with them, and then move them over that way, so I keep everything in order. Now I want to create a posy of the leaves mainly in the centre of this 8x8 square, and I only want to really sort of stencil one of the flowers. So we can see from this first stencil, this area here is where this flower will be sitting. So I'm just going to sort of get an idea of where the stencil is going to be going onto the card initially. So I'm going to go quite as central as I can. Now, as you can see, I'm not able to put this stencil up on the peg system here. But what I will do, I'm going to shift the whole sort of piece of work. So I've lined up my stencil in an area that I know that I can go back to. Now, there are different ways of marking this. You can put yourself a little bit of washi tape there. All I'm doing, I've just got a spare bit of card that it's just something I had to hand. And I'm just going to slide that under the mat there in line with this line here. So I know that when I come to change my stencils over, I'm going to be lining up this bottom edge of this bottom corner of the stencil to this line, this grid work here. That's how I find that I can actually keep the continuity here. If you want to, you can secure your card with magnets to the Ultimate. Obviously you won't be able to do this on the Ultimate 2, so you can just perhaps use just a little bit of tape, little masking tape, just to attach this, or even to attach your stencil also. So I'm going to be using Lisa's inks, of course. So I'm be going in with the green, which is the Woodland Moss, and I shall be going in and just stenciling the leaves here. Now I'm going to create the posy effect with the leaves first before I stencil any of the flowers. because it's the leaves that I really want to sort of stencil a lot of, and I just want one of the flowers, because the size of the flowers, if you were to stencil that more than once, it would actually get quite messy. But with the leaves being as fine as they are, it works quite nicely. So I should go in and I sort of stencil that. Now there are some delicate parts of this stencil, so you just be careful. Now, if I didn't mention before, I perhaps should have done that, I'm actually working onto watercolour card or a multimedia card. So I'm working onto the watercolour card because I will want to add water later on. Now, at this stage, I'm not going to worry about where this stencil is going to be lined up. All I really want to do is just create this posy effect, halo effect with the leaves. So all I've done, as you can see, I've just twisted the stencil. And again, I'm holding the stencil, but you can put your magnet down just to secure that. And then we go in again and we add our green to our leaves. Now, I would say don't worry too much about having the same intensity of colour on each of the each time you stencil these leaves, because you want that little bit of variation, because that's how it would actually appear if it were part of a bouquet, wouldn't it? So I've stenciled those, and I'm just going to twist around again, like so. And I'm just twisting around until I can see that there's quite a lot of clear cardstock underneath the stencil area. Now at this stage, again, you'll see at the bottom here that this stencil is actually falling off the cardstock, but that doesn't worry me at all. Very quickly, so once I pull this stencil away, very quickly you'll see that the design now loses its DL look, and that is the effect that I want. And because these, you can see that there, because these leaves are so delicate, they really sort of do act like the fronds in a bouquet. I've got a couple of areas here where I've gone over the stencil and created this line. Don't worry too much about that. That's something that we can go back in and rectify a bit later on. Plus, if you're working onto watercolour card, if you add a little bit of water to that and just slightly dab it away, that will disguise that bit of ink. Equally, what we can do, and which I'll hopefully, if I've got time as I go on, we can just add a little bit of shade in there. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of the green, and I think I might leave it at that, because I quite like the fact that it's sort of going into a corner. You can obviously go all the way around and you can create a complete halo effect. So what we can do now, we can actually start going in with some of the colour and start adding the flowers, so you can see how this starts building. Now remember, I've got my marker here, so this is the area that I want to line my stencil up to. So I'm going to come in with my smaller stencil brush, and I'm going to be using the yellow, and I can start stenciling the flowers. Let me just check. Let me use a brush so it can actually go in a bit quicker. So we can start stenciling our yellow flowers. Perhaps I'll put the magnet there. You will notice that working onto watercolour card, it takes a little bit longer for the ink to build up. It does work, and you can still blend just as well. You do just need to be just that little bit more patient with it. And just carry on blending, use the same techniques as we always say, just carry on, you know, circular motions, building the ink as you go. It does, you know, you will get the colour intensity that you need. So this time I'm going to use the brush again and come in with some pink. And I shall work around the edges first, so we get that real lovely shot of pink, and then work that into the centre where it gets that little bit lighter, so you get that real diffused look. Then we can add some colour into these flowers here. Again, this is just a suggestion of the flowers, because if you think about the effect that we're trying to get, I don't really want the outside of the this posy to be as true to life, I suppose. We will be blurring those details a bit later on, but we do want to have the effect of a nice delicate flower just there. So I'm going to take that away, and you can see now how we can actually see the posy start to build. We do have a little bit of a gap here, so what I would suggest doing, we only want to come in with the smaller flowers, because coming in with a larger flower, I think it will just take away from this look. So what we need to do, we come back in with our foliage stencil. And what we're going to do, we're going to line up where that stencil sits. And it's quite easy to do. All you need to do is just sort of line it up to where you turned it before. And then what you can do, pick up the card and the stencil together, move it round, so you now then line up this stencil to this area that you've marked here. Okay, put that down, which means the card will be in this right position. Put the magnets on the card, take away the foliage and come back in with these smaller stencil that allowed us to put the yellow flowers on. Line it up to the position here. You again secure it with your magnet and come in with your yellow stencil, and then you can stencil in that yellow, get confused with my colours. You can come in with that yellow flower just there, and that is sitting in the foliage just like that. Okay, so we can start building in these gaps, and I'm going to work around it again, but we can take that away and we can bring the yellow stencil in again, and again it gives us the opportunity to fill in those gaps just there. And we add a little bit of colour to that stencil, not so much on this side because we don't have too much white card showing through, but I'll just add that in the background. And we are slowly building that. Let me just see. And what I can do again, we can come in with the foliage, line up there, turn it round to where the next area was, like so. And again, we're going to turn the card and the stencil together. Secure the two down with your magnets. Come in with the floral stencil. This is the second stencil, by the way. And do we need to add colour to that bit? I think we can add a little bit of colour to that area also. Okay, so we have a little flower sitting there, and we just add a tiny bit of colour into that side. Now, the way I'm looking at this, we need to fill in this area here, don't we? I'll bring in the larger stencil where the larger flower was, and that is actually going to help us add some colour and fill in that area just like so. So I'm going to only use the ink that is sitting on the stencil because I really don't want that to be too bold. All I want to do is just colour that extra white cardstock that is sitting in there. So I'm just going to use the ink off of the stencil, and that would give that effect of a flower sitting in the background. Now, if we want to go back and just fill in this area here, again, hopefully you're following this, and it might be something you want to perhaps do when you're feeling a little brave another day. So I've come in with my foliage stencil, make sure I have it the right way round. Line that up to what I've stenciled already. Turn that around. Secure that. Come in with the larger flower this time. And what you can see that will do is fill in this area here. So if I come in with a slightly different colour, hopefully I'll just catch a bit of yellow sitting on there. And it's only a tiny little area, but that's filled in that background. So we have the effect of flowers sitting in the background. Now, what I want to do is to create that watercolour effect before I add any detail onto these flowers. And to do that, this is where I'm going to come in with my mister. I'm going to use this smaller mister because it gives it a really small and a really fine mist of water. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to mist the foliage that I've stenciled around the outside, and what you can see that that is doing, that is allowing that ink to bleed. And to me, that is what gives this like the faux watercolour effect. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can allow this to dry and allow that ink to bleed and dry itself, or you can come in with a bit of paper towel or just a bit of cloth and you can actually dab off that excess water, and that will just prevent those images bleeding too much. But hopefully what you can see that's done, that's really softened the effect, and that's really given the look that you've actually watercoloured without going to the extremes of having the brushes and sort of putting the watercolour down in any washes in the background. I'm really not a watercolour artist at all, and I'm sort of not a painter, but I love the effect, and I think this really does achieve that. Now you can achieve that, as I say, on just a single pass of all the stencils, but I just wanted to show you how I created that posy effect. Now I will push on because I want to finish the card for you and show you the look. So I'm going to come in with the next stencil. Remember I've only used 3 stencils so far. So what I can do, because we have that main flower, I can add the detail to the flower, and that is really easy to match up. So what I can do, I can match up the flower and then get us back on track and line up this stencil back to this area here. So we have that reference point that we've been working to all along, and I can secure that down, and now I can start adding the detail to the centre of the flower. Because I haven't watercoloured the flower, I try to keep the best I can the water away from the flower. The detail in this central flower will remain a lot crisper, and I think it's that will allow this flower to sort of be the real focal effect, and that this sort of image should really sort of pop. I'm hoping that's the effect that I'm having anyway. That's the hope that I have. So I add the details. You see I'm layering the purple actually onto the pink flowers, which gives us a lovely effect. And I'm just doing that really gently, so it gives us a real sort of halo look. So it's going to be sort of real gentle detail. And I shall come in with a pink stencil brush, and I shall put those details onto the yellow flowers with the pink, so that'll give us a real peachy kind of effect, kind of colour. So that'll be really soften that down. It's just another way to use your stencils. You can really make this so bold and make each layer really jump and pop. Or you can go in really gentle and just give a hint of these details. I think that's the beauty of these stencils. You can really tailor the look of the image that you're creating. So we can pull that away. We can see that we've got really gentle detail in those flowers, which I think is just so pretty. And again, we can come in with the next stencil because we're back in position here. I can line it up on the side, and we can come in with the detail of the centre of the flowers. So we have purple for the centre of that flower, and we'll go for pink in the centre of the yellow flowers. And this can, I think these stencils are so versatile. You can really can create all sorts with them. I mean, it really is just a case of playing. I've done this a couple of times before, so sort of the twisting and the turning of the stencils, it made sort of sense to me. But if you want to give it a go, just on a sort of a piece of copy paper initially, just to get the feel of what you're doing, if you want to give it a go, or if you just want to use the flower, the leaves as a posy in the background, which is, I think, something that Lisa actually demonstrates on her quick introductory video that's on YouTube for you. She used the leaves in the same way as I have done here, but then stenciled and die cut the image as a whole and superimposed that, or 3D'd that on top of the leaf foliage, and that looked just lovely too. But it gives you that option just to practice twisting and turning and sort of manipulating your stencils. So we can see now, when you turn that back around this way, that we have a lovely sort of floral posy effect, which I think is just really, really pretty. Now, there are different ways that you can now play with your inks to finish this off. As I say, I've perhaps got some little image, little areas here where I've gone over the stencil. But what you can do, you can get yourself one of your blending brushes and come in with your inks, and you can start sort of disguising those and just adding some blending around the outside, and that gives a real nice sort of softened halo look around the image like that, and that really starts disguising those areas like so. And we do the same over here. And I think actually you can use different colours. I mean, I'm using a green because that sort of sits really nicely with all the sort of the foliage we've got on the card there. So if I just add like a halo of green around all the edges of this cardstock, I think that sort of starts framing the whole sort of artwork really nicely. And I think this is something that you'd really enjoy sitting and playing with, and say once you've sort of mastered how you line up all your stencils, you can create something really lovely. And I'll just add a little bit more green around here, and it just takes off that whiteness of the cardstock, I think. We will go on and matte and layer this onto the card blank, of course, but if we can add some detail onto this watercolour card, then I think that would work really well. Now, there's any number of background stencils that you can use to add detail in the background here. I'm going to use the layering abstract squares. I'm not going to layer them, I'm just going to use just one of the 3 stencils that come in that set, and that will just give us some detail. I'm going to carry on with the green. That will just give us a little bit of interest, I think, just in the corners of this image, and you can start seeing now how you can start building up these images. So use a little bit of green still, because it will just tone it into the background. That just takes away the I suppose the starkness of the empty cardstock, and I think it just works in the green because it just keeps it subtle in the background there, and I think that just works really well. And you can build that up with different colours as much or as little as you want. Actually, I'm looking at the screen, hopefully you can see that. Let's lift that up a little bit more and turn that to the light. So I think that just gives a really lovely look, and again, that is just something that you can really play with and really sort of build up. And sometimes it's worth doing a little bit, leaving it as it is, go away, make tea, coffee, dinner, do the school run, then come back to it and see what else that you might want to add to it. I think another thing that would work really well is the script stamp from the textures background, which is a staple of the design team. It's a favourite of most of ours, I think. I know definitely mine and Dawn's is for sure, and I think a little bit of text stamped in the background would work really well. So if we, I brought in the wrong thing then. So if we actually put this onto our card blank and add the matte layer, suddenly having those colours around the outside and really makes that pop. And I don't think it needs a huge amount more. We can perhaps add a sentiment there, and I think on the original I added a ribbon and a bow. You could put some faux pearls, some of the flat back gems. But I think that is a really nice sort of different way to use one of Lisa's stencils. Let me just bring in the other one also. Hopefully now you can see, when I said that this was perhaps a little bit too much, you can see what I mean about that. But I think, but by the time I've added the sentiments and words to this, I think that just sort of sits really nice in the background, or even putting that there. And I think not having all the precise detail that Lisa has given us on the stencils, I think sometimes can actually work. Hopefully you'll agree, and it's something a bit different as well. It's lovely to be back. It's nice to have you all join me again. Again, if there's anything that you want us to demo in our lives, do give us a shout, either me or Dawn or Lisa. We'll try and put something together for the lives. If not that, then the design team who do the little videos as well can do something and put that onto YouTube for you. I'll see you all again next week. Thanks everyone.